Now, we mentioned Nigel Farage, and the Reform UK leader has certainly had some momentum in the polls since his declaration for Parliament. But for days now, Nigel Farage has been seen to be talking more about Ukraine than migration, doubling down on his stance that the EU and NATO expansion provoked Putin, though said any suggestion of sympathies for Mr Putin are wrong. Well, today a new poll by Savanta sees a dip for Reform for the first time, putting them 7 points behind the Conservatives. Now, just a check here. That being said, another poll from Redfield and Wilton yesterday had Reform in second place at 19%, 1 point ahead of the Conservatives. So a mixed picture. But the question is, have Mr Farage's comments made a difference to Reform's momentum? Well, joining me now is my panel, former Labour advisor Stella Santakido and, of course, Kelvin Mackenzie as well. Stella, it seems odd that Nigel's been talking about Ukraine for so long when he could have been talking about the issue that he wants this election to be about. Is it a tactical error on his part?
Massive strategic error on his part. And the reason why he did that, of course, is because genuinely he is suspicious of the EU, he's suspicious of the American intentions. He obviously has sympathies with Donald Trump, who doesn't recognize the very important role that the West plays when it comes to challenging Putin. He made a massive error in the language that he used. He said that the West provoked Vladimir Putin, and now Nigel Farage's deal and his appeal is that he's a patriot and he's someone who is saying don't talk down on our country and defend Western values. So his voter base is broadly people who want you to defend Western values. Now, when you go out and say, actually, you know, Vladimir Putin may have a point, then you're alienating those voters. We know that 75%, more in common in the poll in May this year, 75% of British people think that it is important for the UK that Ukraine wins the war. And I agree with them because I think it is very important that Russia is seen by the international community to not be tolerated. We cannot be seen to tolerate Russia's actions because what is this going to inspire in other countries?
Kelvin, of course, polls tell different stories, but it is notable that there is a poll that shows a dip in support for Reform. Do you think that has anything to do with maybe not even the message, but the message focus?
Right, so if you take somebody like me, I know this will come as an enormous surprise to you, I'm a natural Tory, right, who was veering towards reform because of the migration issue. He, to my mind, raising that issue, I find that massively challenging. I can't, in all honesty, vote for somebody who has that view about Putin. I share everybody's view. We need to see Putin defeated. We need to defend Ukraine. They're defending the UK. They're defending France. They're defending Poland. It is massively important. And to try and say, look, mate, do a deal. Give up a bit of your land. Imagine if you're a Pole and you're listening to a major political figure in the UK who is sitting alongside thinking those guys are heading my way shortly. I thought it was an error. I have been friendly with Nigel Farage for 30 years. I honestly feel he has made an error in that, but he believes in it, and I agree with your point. He sides with Trump on this issue, and we must all be concerned, by the way, that if Trump gets in.
Of course, Boris Johnson said something similar back in 2016 about EU expansion risking war in Ukraine. But you supported Boris Johnson.
Yeah, I did, and his was a different tone to the tone that this was adopting, which sounded as though actually what Nigel was saying was, yeah, look, he may be a bad guy, but honestly, I think we should accommodate him in some way. Honestly, anybody who had been around Hitler in the late 30s might have been tempted to have said the same thing, and what a mistake that would be. The idea that a Putin-type figure is in any way wants to accommodate the West and wants to be friendly with us has been totally disproved. After all, Putin sent somebody over here to kill one of our people, you know? I mean, he's a murderer, you know? And his people are all being done by the International Criminal Court right now, you know, the former defense. He is a thoroughly bad guy, and anything he says is not to be believed. He has ambitions to he sees himself as today's Stalin, right? And 20 million of their own people suffered there. There'll be 20 million of our people who suffered. Every 10 seconds he's saying, I'm going to drop a nuclear bomb on you if you say anything like that. Honestly, Nigel, I think that was an error. And I believe that middle-ranking Tories will agree with me.